Welcome back to Fine Tooning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I am entertainment writer Jim Hill, and Mr. Taylor, whose writings on the industry you can regularly read over on The Wrap, and whose musings on the Mission Impossible movies you can enjoy by listening to the Light the Fuse podcast. He and I are recording this week's show on Sunday, October 13th, and you've been away for a bit, Drew. Nice to have you back. Hopefully you and Katie had fun during your time back east.
Yeah, I mean, I was more of an emotional support husband, as you know all too well.
Mm-hmm.
Just working out of
Mm-hmm.
a hotel and just trying to get it done. But yeah, it was nice. Sure,
Okay.
happy to be back west. But
Okay. Now, we were just pre-gaming before we get started here, and Drew pointed out that, we've just got the box office estimates for this weekend coming in, and you noted and this might be for the first time ever that in the top 10 there are five animated films. Is that correct?
yeah, I think this is the first time
Mm-hmm.
ever. So the five animated features in there.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're guessing the rankings are going to be because we don't have the final numbers yet. But
There we go.
Wild Robot is number two, Transformers One is number five, Piece by
Mm-hmm.
Piece is number six, My Hero Academia You're Next is number eight, and The Nightmare Before Christmas re-release is number nine. Um, and
Wow.
what I love about this is that the movies
Mm-hmm.
are so different from
Mm-hmm.
one another too. I mean, it's just really it really shows you the scope of what animated movies are, and the fact that they are all being included and being watched by so many people is really encouraging, I think,
Oh,
for sure.
absolutely. Though to slide back to Wild Robot, which again third weekend in theaters, you would also wanted to be sure that we mentioned that we got some news about a follow up for that Chris Sanders film. Is that correct? Or
Yes, I mean Chris has been pretty
mm,
open about wanting to do another one, and I think they finally officially confirmed it over the
mm-hmm,
weekend. Now, what's also weird about Wild Robot being number two
mm-hmm.
is that it's coming out on digital on Tuesday, Jim, which I think is very odd.
Yeah, but
Um,
that is kind of the our new ecosystem for entertainment these days. The notion of that got to strike while the iron is hot, and there are just people who these days don't want to go to a theater but still want to see this movie. So it's like absolutely, give us your money, you can watch it at home.
mhm.
So now doubling back to the sequel that just got announced. I mean, not exactly a surprise. I mean, given that Peter Brown wrote three Wild Robot books, and all of which wound up on the New York Times bestseller list, this is kind of why DreamWorks licensed the film rights to this. By the way, worth noting, Mr. Brown has a brand new Wild Robot book coming out next year. It's going to be the first ever picture book in the series. Wild Robot on the Island will be coming from Little Brown's Book for Young Readers division. 48-page picture book isn't going to hit store shelves till June 24th of next year. But on the other hand, you can pre-order a copy of The Wild Robot on the Island on Amazon right now. And while you're pre-ordering things, might I remind you that the art and making of Ultraman Uprising, written by our own Drew Taylor. That's going to be available for purchase on December 3rd of this year. And whereas The Art of Amphibia, which Drew co wrote with that show's creator, Matt Braley, that's not going to be available for purchase till March 25th of 2025. But again, you can pre-order all of these over on Amazon. And by the way, Drew, I have been expanding my library. In fact, just this week, snagged a copy of Trolls, The Art of Trolls Band Together, which
Mm.
again, this was released to theaters in November last year, but I remember you being very enthusiastic about how that mixed hand drawn and sort of freaky animation styles all together. And I have to admit, I've kind of been What at the end of my workday when I'm just looking to sort of decompress, I'm on YouTube, and I find lately I've been watching a lot of clips from Trolls Band Together because they have some amazing animation in that thing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun movie. Did you watch the whole movie, or are you just watching clips
I
like
I
my
I
3-year-old niece?
I'm channeling for your 3-year-old niece. All
Okay.
right, we have the same attention span,
Okay.
Drew. Oh, by the way, earlier this week, Amazon was doing its Prime sale, and I have to admit, I was tempted to go for that Art of DreamWorks Animation celebrating 30 years book, which Abrams put out, 576 pages, originally listed for $200. They had it during the Prime event as low as 125. I didn't pull the trigger, and now it's back up to 153. But the problem is there's so many great animation books coming out this fall. I have trouble justifying spending 200 on just one book when, for example, we have The Art of Futurama coming out on November 12th, and 2 weeks after that we have The Art of Moana coming out on November 26th. And
What about Jim Hercules: The Art of Gerald's Scarf book coming out?
Oh no,
Yeah,
really?
this is all of his, including, I believe, some of the Jack Nicholson stuff.
Oh, you're killing me. I
Yeah.
mean, I have a copy of what it the original Disney making of Hercules book. What was it? The Chaos of Creation, I think it was
Yes.
called.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, this
and,
this
and
one's
with
not coming out until January, Jim, but it is $75. So,
Damn it. And the other thing we'll be talking about in just a second, the reason I'm being a little like about when it comes to my animation related spending, because there's this cool new box set about to come on the market, which Drew and I will talk about in a moment. But first, I have to acknowledge our sponsor here, which is, of course, TuringPlans.com. And if you're headed down to Central Florida anytime soon to sample one of the theme parks you'll find around the city beautiful, well, Turing Plans can help you save time. More importantly, it can help you save money as you wander around Walt Disney World or the Universal Orlando Resort. So please check them out at TuringPlans.com. Okay, so was alluding to something cool, box set that's coming, and this is actually Aardman related, which of course has a big new project headed our way on Christmas Day, the Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Fowl, which will be their first new feature-length project featuring Aardman's stop-motion heroes, and almost 20 years now, right, since Curse of the Were-Rabbit, right?
yeah. Yeah, and I
Okay.
mean, A Grand Day Out was in the late 80s, I want to say.
89.
89,
89.
there you
That
go. So we've had, a long time with these characters.
Yeah, well, now in recognition of the unique role that Wallace and Gromit played in the rise of Aardman, the nice folks at Shout Factory have prepped Wallace and Gromit the complete cracking collection, and this is the first time that all four of the Wallace and Gromit short films, and as Drew just mentioned, that started in '89 with A Grand Day Out. '93 we got The Wrong Trousers, which introduced us to Feathers McGraw, right? The villain
Yes.
of Vengeance Most Fowl. Okay, 95 we got A Close Shave, and then in 2008 we got the fourth of the short, A Matter of Loaf and Death, and in between there, we got, and in fact, from DreamWorks, 2005's The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Now, again, I know we mentioned this repeatedly on the show about what Guillermo del Toro said about physical media, that how it's almost reached a Fahrenheit 451 level of responsibility these days. Have to say, completely cracking collection, a teeny bit pricey. List for 119, though Amazon currently has the 3-disc set if you pre-order for $99.99, and it comes with 3-disc set comes with a 28-page book. More to the point, the nice folks at Shout Factory, this Wallace and Gromit complete cracking collection is going to be in 4K ultra high def with newly restored audio. So all of these Aardman movies will look and sound better than you've ever seen them before. But I know if you're a completist like me, you sort of embrace the reality that, yeah, if you spring for this complete cracking collection, you're still going to have to buy a physical copy of Vengeance Most Fowl at some point.
Also, Curse of the Were-Rabbit is not in 4K, which is kind of a bummer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So the shorts are
what?
in 4K, but the movie is not, which is
Ah.
weird. I don't know. I don't know if DreamWorks is planning to put that out themselves or what. But
Uh,
yeah.
it would be nice to have a teeny bit of cooperation going
Yeah,
on here.
yeah.
Now,
No.
all right. Now, speaking of Aardman, Carla Shelley, the executive producer of this new Wallace and Gromit feature, at a press conference for this upcoming BBC Netflix release. And by the way, I guess we should mention that Vengeance Most Fowl drops on BBC on Christmas Day. And
And it'll have its world premiere in LA at the AFI Film Festival at the end of October.
oh,
Yeah.
cool. Okay. All right. So hopefully you'll be able to talk about that.
Yes.
All right. But what was interesting is that Carla was mentioning that people need to be ready for Vengeance Most Fowl, because this one's supposedly going to stir up some emotions that she talked about. I think we're going to make everybody cry. I mean, we're going to surprise everybody and make you laugh as well, but it's really emotional. That's where the heart is. And by the way, production of this most recent Aardman project was just completed this past week, which I guess, Drew, explains the other news that came out of Bristol again just this past week, which is that 20 longtime Aardman staffers were let go. Now, out in LA, Drew, people are used to this, right? The
Yeah.
notion that new animated project is in the works, so it staffs up as they're going into production, and then once work is done on the film, what's the polite phrase? We reduce headcount, right?
Right.
But evidently, this is something new for Aardman. Now, I want to stress here that 405 people still work at that animation studio. And as Sean Clark, Aardman's manager director, stated in a press release that accompanied the announcement of this layoff, it's like, it is no secret that the entertainment industry is going through much change and uncertainty at this moment. And while it is always sad to say goodbye to any members of our team, the changes that we have made will ensure that Aardman is well placed to navigate the current market and can now look to the future with confidence in several major new greenlit productions, which we will be announcing in the new year. So I guess that's good news, but
Well, did you see there was one more piece of Aardman news this week?
Which
Which
was?
was that they are creating a 2-minute short film in celebration of the 10th anniversary of Over the Garden Wall. That this new short will be
No.
written and directed by Patrick McHale and animated by Aardman. So
Holy
yeah, that'll
cow.
be dropping on November 1st. So there you go.
Now, I love hearing that, but were you as concerned as I was about the news with Over the Garden Wall that it's kind of gone the Willow the series route what the
Well,
streaming service
apparently
go?
apparently that was false information, and I think Patrick
Oh,
uh cleared that up. So hopefully it'll still be around for a long time. And I actually know that
mm-hmm.
there is some other exciting consumer product stuff happening for the anniversary.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah,
All right.
I think we'll be
Oh.
okay. Yeah.
All right, all right. That makes me happy because
Yes.
Alice, who was the one who introduced me to Over the Hedge, it was kind of DEFCON 4 when the word came out that maybe it was going away, and it's like, and again back to Guillermo, it's just like I was suddenly, damn, I should have gotten a physical copy of this
Yeah, I
thing,
mean it's
but
only available on DVD, so I really hope we get a Blu-ray or 4K anniversary,
that would be great. That
thing
would be
for that.
great.
Yeah.
That There we go. Okay, so now we were talking about the realities of the animation industry, how projects start up and projects shut down, and we got some unfortunate news this week from the team that works on Velma for Warner Brothers Animation. They learned that this Scooby Doo spinoff, which puts a decidedly adult spin on that Saturday morning favorite, has been canceled after just 2 seasons on Max, and it would have been nice to see Velma get a longer run on that subscription streaming service. Sort of like what happened with Star Trek Lower Decks on Paramount Plus. I mean, that animated series got a 5 season run, and in fact begins its final season on that streaming service next week or thereabouts. I want to say October 24th with 2 episodes back to back, and trailer that just dropped for this suggests that Lower Decks going into its fifth and final season, the writing is just as sharp and as funny as it's always been, and we're going to get new episodes every Thursday right through December 19th, which is when the Lower Decks series finale drops.
I mean, I listen, not to harp
Mm.
on this again, but
Mm.
Velma was always this many episodes. I mean, this is the same thing they always do when they quote unquote have a second season,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a long series one order that they split up into two.
Mm-hmm.
So it was less that it was canceled and
Mm-hmm.
more that it was not picked up for more episodes. Like these
Got
were
it.
it didn't get a renewal for season two. The
Mm-hmm.
season two episodes were just what were initially ordered by the network, which is what we've talked about a lot.
No. You're not
Yeah,
wrong, and I should have mentioned that again. Realistically, this was a 20 episode order that got broken into 2 seasons.
right.
So
Yeah,
that's
we
an
love it,
excellent
Jim.
point.
We love the creative bookkeeping, I believe is what they say.
All true. All
Uh,
true. All right. Now, you mentioned at the top of the show about, again, we have perhaps for the first time ever 5 animated projects in the top 10 in the domestic box office. And one of them you mentioned was Piece by Piece, which, again, is a documentary about Pharrell Williams' career, but done in the style of the Lego movie. Have you gotten a chance to see this yet? Or
yeah, I saw it. I liked it a lot.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think by the end of the weekend, it will be the highest grossing animated documentary ever. We've seen this before with things like Waltz with Bashir,
Mm-hmm.
if you'll recall from a few years ago and other things. But
Yes, yeah,
yeah, it's
okay.
a really fun,
Mm-hmm.
creative version of
Mm-hmm.
what the story could be. And obviously Pharrell is a really interesting guy, and you actually get some history into
Mm-hmm.
how he created the songs for Despicable Me, which gave him this whole other kind of side of his career. So yeah, animation fans should get a lot out of it beyond just the movie itself, which is great. But you'll get a little history about Despicable Me in there as well.
Oh, okay. Now definitely have to check that out. But again, what I really appreciate about Piece by Piece is that when you think about like the songs he did for Despicable Me, how happy they are. It's like this is kind of a perfect mix of subject and storytelling medium. And by the way, remember, folks, that's what Brad Bird said about feature animation, that it is not a genre, but rather feature animation is a storytelling medium. And speaking of Brad Bird, did you see that thing that bubbled up from Instagram about She Builds Robots? Did you?
No.
Oh, you got to. What are the point? Listeners have to check this out. She Builds Robots posted a reel where this brilliant woman has created what is perhaps the ultimate Ratatouille Halloween themed costume.
Oh, I did see that, Jim. I did see that. That was
Yeah. All right.
amazing. Yeah.
What do you want to describe? What it
Sure, sure.
is?
Well,
Okay.
I mean, this young woman is
Mm-hmm.
I think she's like she's at like MIT or something. She's like a genius, like
Mm-hmm.
designer and builder, and she
Mm-hmm.
built this costume that has a working Remy on top of her head that is pulling her hair. I mean, it is unbelievable. And
Oh,
I thought that the art style was great.
mm-hmm.
I loved everything about it. Yeah.
Well, and you're not the only one. Patton Oswalt, the original voice of Remy from Pixar's Ratatouille, also got to see this Instagram video, and what he had to say in response to what She Builds Robots did with just 3 words. It's like, this is, and then all in capital letters, brilliant. So Drew, you have to wonder, somebody at Disney Consumer Products right now is sort of working the back channels, because it's like, this is next year's Halloween costume.
Yeah, this is above and beyond the shoulder plush, guys.
There we go.
Let's get this. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. I agree. It was so cool.
just making a prediction, this time next year, people are going to be walking around in linguini costumes with this thing on the top of their heads. But but that said, what's sometimes tough when you're like myself and Drew, and you cover entertainment news, particularly the animation beat. You hear about projects that you really, really, really want to see make it to the big screen. Like, case in point, Brad Bird's Ray Gun, his decades in development film noir sci-fi thing, and I'm hoping we don't throw this next bit of news on that same pile, the thing that we talk about and we get hopeful and it never seems to actually make it to the screen. But did you hear about this John Boorman project? That, I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
what have you heard about the Honey Wars?
Well, first of all, we need to talk about who John Boorman
Thank,
is.
thank you. Okay.
He is an amazing
Mm-hmm.
British director. He has not made that many movies. He's
No.
91.
Yep. Yep.
He directed Excalibur and Zardoz and Deliverance and The Emerald Forest and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of really interesting, great movies. And so
You didn't
he
mention
had
my favorite in the
which
pile.
one?
Hope and Glory. The
Hope and
sort of,
Glory. Okay,
yeah.
Hope and Glory is amazing. Hope and
Mm-hmm.
Glory, we also have to talk about in terms of like technological uh things. It was like one of the first Steadicam movies or something, or extensively used
Oh, I
Steadicam.
did not know
Yeah,
that. But
yeah. But it's a beautiful movie.
absolutely, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Hard to find these days, but
Hess
yeah,
is a lot of his stuff, actually.
yeah. I do have my limited edition Zardoz, so I'm set
Oh,
with that. Thank God. Thank God. Anytime I
oh,
need to see Sean Connery in a loincloth, I'm
I was about to say that's something you can't unsee. All right,
yeah.
just sort of like, wow, do some squats, Sean. Okay, and I'm just saying, kind of
So
flabby. So
yeah. Well, let's talk about the Honey Wars, which
hmm
is really interesting because it is being developed by an Irish studio that is
yeah,
not Cartoon Saloon.
no,
Cavalier
Cavalier.
Productions,
There
yeah.
we go. Hmm.
And it
Okay.
has a voice cast with Jamie Lee Curtis, Vanessa
Mm-hmm.
Kirby,
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Stewart, Brendan Gleeson, Richard E.
Mm-hmm.
Grant, and John Voight. And it's billed as a dark comedic fantasy. Um,
Yeah, and
so I don't
and
know. What do you think about this, Jim?
well, look, again, any time I can get new John Boorman, I'll take it. Just
Yeah,
sort of, I mean, it's weird. I would not necessarily call myself a fan of, like, for example, Excalibur, but there's still things in that movie that I remember from having seen it 40 years ago. I mean, that's how good a filmmaker he is. Even when he makes a movie I don't necessarily like, I can never forget it. And
yeah,
so just the fact that this guy at 91 is going to get into animation, it's like, again, I really want this to actually happen. But again, it's just one of these things where it's been announced, and supposedly Boorman has recruited these folks to do voice work, but it's now like, all right, so is this actually going to happen? Because I've just been at this so long that it's like Mickey Columbus, the featurette that Disney was supposed to make that never made it. Well, and speaking of which, folks, when we get back from this commercial break, in honor of Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day, we're going to talk about some Mickey stuff that never quite got made. But first, this. And we're back. Okay, and again, want to say top of the show. We talked about how Wild Robot third week in theaters is still number two. Just got its sequel greenlit. If you haven't seen this yet, and don't want to make it to theater and want to buy the digital version, be able to watch it at home this week, highly recommend that. Especially during this incredibly stressful news cycle. Just would be nice to sit there on the couch and just have this very emotional film wash over you. Just going to tell you, you're going to cry at least 5 times, so bring tissues. But did you see where Chris Sanders was doing an interview about working on this film and talked about when he read the Peter Brown books and realized that this was going to be a different sort of movie. There's a great quote here, Drew, that the thing, when he was reading the books, the thing that was on Brown's mind, the guiding principle of the Wild Robot books, is the idea is that kindness could be a survival skill. I immediately jotted that down and thought, okay, we need to get that up on screen for sure. And let's face it, Drew, kindness isn't something that people normally build a movie around. I mean, adventure is.
Conflict typically
There we
is,
go.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. And so the notion of you could approach the world with kindness. I mean, and speaking of conflict, this this is an interesting 3-day holiday we're in the middle of here. I mean, look, Columbus Day as a concept didn't exist till 1892. In fact, it was President Benjamin Harrison who issued a proclamation recognizing the 400th anniversary of Columbus's discovery of America. Now, mind you, didn't actually become a federal holiday for another, 45 years, 1937. Whereas Indigenous People Day, that came about in 1992 at Berkeley, on the campus of University in Berkeley, California. And that was done in recognition of the 500th anniversary of. But what's interesting is that the language has changed through. It's gone from Columbus's discovery of America to the arrival of Columbus in the Americas. All right, and then we march forward another 20 years or so. Many states and cities begin to adopt Indigenous Peoples Day, and it's only in 2021 that President Biden formally commemorates this holiday with a presidential proclamation. And now, if we circle back to that 1992 date, the 500th anniversary of Columbus again. Columbus's arrival in the Americas. The Walt Disney Company was taking a really close look at that in the late 1980s. It's like, all right, should we do something with that? Is that something we should maybe do something big about at, say, Epcot? Or for that matter, should we do a film of some sort? And the idea they kind of settled on was a featurette starring Mickey that was supposed to be kind of an expansion, a continuation of the series that had started with Mickey's Christmas Carol in '83, and then we saw the studio circle back on this idea in December of 1990 with Prince and the Pauper. But what's not generally known, Drew, and in fact, I want to ask about during your time at the company, whether or not you heard about any of these other Mickey-related things that they had wanted to sort of every 2 years do a new Mickey featurette to keep the character in the public eye, front and center, that sort of thing. So, in fact, I remember visiting the Magic of Disney Animation exhibit at Disney MGM, and you could look into the fishbowl in one of the rooms. when I was visiting, they actually had the boards up for the follow up to the Prince and the Pauper, which was Mickey's Arabian Adventure, which was basically supposed to be, as my understanding, it followed much of the same story material as Aladdin, and in fact, that was one of the reasons that it ultimately got killed, because suddenly Aladdin was a feature that the company was going to go forward with. And just sort of like, I don't know as we want two animated films working the same side of the street, so let's shut this one down. But do you remember any Mickey related stuff from when you were there at Disney?
I don't remember any Mickey related stuff specifically. I remember, a lot of Fantasia related stuff that was
Mm-hmm.
being milled around, but we
Mm-hmm.
never got a we never got a third entry in Fantasia. I mean, they were talking. I mean, this was when they were developing like the Three Caballeros series, and
Yep.
they were working on a 3D Oswald project.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of interest in reviving those characters. I think that you couldn't have done it any better than the Paul Ruddish stuff, which was
Well, no.
which was in the ether at the time, and that was when they were sort of releasing them on YouTube, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. The story ends happily. We do get Paul Reddish's wonderful Mickey Mouse shorts, which launch in 2013 with Croissant de Triomphe. I think it is that was that the first one where
on the Vespa,
there we go. There we
yeah.
go. And that was the one that really it laid down so many of the things they circled back on. I mean, remember there's at one point Mickey's trying to make the delivery to Minnie's bakery, and doesn't he actually drive through what is it, Cinderella's castle, and knock the glass slipper out of Prince Charming's hand as he's I mean, it's just the whole notion of that. Yes, we will be. They'll have amazing art direction, but every so often there'll be this nod back to one of the shorts of the features of that sort of thing, in a very subversive way. And but they had great music and they had great animation to them, but it took them so long to get there and in fact, and I think what's wonderful about what Paul did with those animated shorts is they have the fun and the energy of the original Mickey Mouse shorts from the 30s, but they are so clearly done for the somewhat knowing audience of the 2010s and the 2020s. But before we got there, I mean, we had, like I said, they were looking at things like Mickey Columbus, where the idea is obviously, again, that Mickey was supposed to be the captain of the Nina, and I want to say Goofy was the captain of the Santa Maria, and Donald was the Pinta. And, but the other thing that I guess was kind of interesting about this is what it got tripped up by was like, okay, so how exactly are we doing the indigenous people once he gets to the Americas? Who is he going to meet on the beach, and how are we doing this? And they made a bunch of different runs at those characters, and in the end decided that there's no way we can really do this. Especially what was kind of interesting is at this same time Disney is working on Pocahontas and suddenly understanding that if we're going to do a respectful take on the First Peoples, we can't be doing something silly with Mickey at the same time. We're going to have to shut this down. Um, but at the same time, just the sense was that Mickey is a corporate symbol these days. He's boring, and we're losing an opportunity here. So, in the same window of time is when we got Runaway Brain developed. Chris Bailey and his team working on that, and that. but but then that seemed to bury the needle in the exact opposite direction. That was so out there and so extreme that really barely got released, right? And then got shoved back into the vault so quickly.
Yes, yes.
And then from there, it was just the whole notion of, okay, maybe theatrical is the wrong way to go. So that's when we began to see For example, Disney Television Animation did first the Mickey Mouse Works show. We got our first episodes of that in May of '99. After that, in January of 2001, we got the House of Mouse show, where it was okay. Let's see if we can make Mickey hip. And in between there, we got a home premiere, the Mickey Once Upon a Christmas video. And then in the middle here, and this is the one that always kind of fascinated me, Drew. That did you ever hear about the Search for Mickey project?
No.
Oh, okay. This was coming up on one of the Mickey birthdays. In fact, I want to say this was proposed for the 75th. And the notion was that Mickey, we need to do something really special with Mickey. And so the premise was that in the first minute or so of this hand drawn project, you were going to see Mickey mouse snapped, and Minnie, is desperate for help, and so she turns to, again, a mouse has been kidnapped. Who do you turn to? The great mouse detective Basil of Baker Street, and
Oh
then
man.
so
Oh.
so this is the conceit of the movie, that Basil takes the case, and he then proceeds to move through every Disney feature animated project that the studio has made up until that time. And every character was supposed to make at least a cameo in this thing. I mean, in a weird sort of way, it's kind of Once Upon a Studio in feature form. Picture that, 90 minutes long, and everything was supposed to be on model and everything. And in the end, Drew, that's what supposedly killed the project. It was the idea that, yes, we had just done something like this with House of Mouse. We had created a television show where we brought back a lot of the classic Disney characters and had them interacting. But the notion was, well, but that's television animation. And if we're going to do this, for Mickey's 75th anniversary and make sure that everybody's on model, we're going to have our A team on this thing. And given the amount of money we're spending, what was initially supposed to be something that we were only going to do for home video now looks like it's going to cost so much that we probably should do a theatrical release. And is there really an audience out there for this thing? And it just, the weight of the cost and the amount of time that was going to be poured into the thing, just it sort of collapsed in on itself. Though weirdly, this did eventually lead to that wonderful animated version of the Three Musketeers. That it's like, well, we got to do something. I mean, it's Mickey's 75th. We got to do something. But they started so late, they actually missed the anniversary year. And it came out in the following year, August of 2004. And then we began to see all of this preschool stuff. Things
Yeah.
like the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse came out in November of 2005. And just before that, we got a sequel to Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. We got Twice Upon a Christmas, but this is the first time that Mickey was done in CG. Though, in fact, it's kind of interesting. We just finished wrapping a series, Len and I, about the Mickey Mouse Review and how we eventually got to Mickey's PhilharMagic. And it was the folks who were working on that who literally raised their hand to the team over that was working on Twice Upon a Christmas. And it's like, how the hell are you doing the ears? We are having such a tough time with when you move Mickey's head with those ears. How are you making that work in perspective? Because it looks terrible here. In fact, that's supposedly why when you watch Mickey's PhilharMagic, he's in the film as little as he is, and he's as badly lit as he is, because it's like they just couldn't make it work.
Well, I was gonna say there is that Mickey Mouse documentary that has that great bit of animation that is sort of him through the years. Um, that
Oh,
you know
yeah.
that
Yeah.
Eric and Randy Haycock and a bunch of people, Mark Henn, worked on. But I've always wondered why there hasn't been like
Mhm.
a Into the Spider-Verse style movie with Mickey.
Well, let me throw one last thing out here on the pile. Now, mind you, this is strictly print. But have you ever seen the Mickey is 60 thing that Bill Stout drew? And oh, I'm blanking the name of the gentleman who wrote it. But the idea is that during that same window of time, the Disney company is celebrating Mickey's 60th anniversary, and so there's the image of Mickey trying to be hip. So he's wearing a tuxedo, but he's got white tennis shoes on, and uh, and I want to say it was Jim Steinmeier who wrote the script. But the gimmick is that it's Mickey if he really were 60, as in he's a heavy set Hollywood retiree who's in his apartment and periodically gets checks from Disney. And they call him in to do voice work or that sort of thing. But it's him as if, again, he were a real actor who'd really worked for the studio and how folks in the industry actually talked. And they just made it to amuse themselves while they were working in Imagineering. But it became so popular, they created a book form that, by the way, you can buy today from Bill Stout's online store. But the part of the story that I really love here, Drew, is evidently a copy made it to Eisner's desk. And he got back in touch with Bill and Jim and evidently said, I love this. Just that as somebody who works at entertainment, yes, absolutely. This is what Mickey Mouse would really be like if he were, in fact, 60 years old and lived out in LA. Heavyset guy, it's like, yeah, well, things didn't work out with many, but it's okay. I'm fine, here in my little apartment in Toluca Lake. So,
Right.
all right. Well, anyway, folks. All right. So that again, in honor of Indigenous People Day and Columbus Day, talk about making Columbus the short you never got to see. But again, got to start saying we did get all of those wonderful, Paul Ruddish Mickey Mouse shorts, and that series finally officially wrapped last year with Steamboat Silly, right? Is that supposedly the last one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is that he will return in some form
I
sooner rather than
hope.
later, but not maybe not with the
Mhm.
regularity that we've seen him over the past few years. But
Okay.
obviously, when you have one of the biggest rides on both
No, no,
coasts being
no. That
based on him,
no. I mean, it's not like that version of the character is going away anytime soon. But Paul and the team there just so beautifully nailed that, and I loved their take on the world. I loved their take on the characters, and it would just be nice to see that continue. So, and speaking of something that I hope continues soon, Light the Fuse has been on hiatus for a while. But on the other hand, we still have the complete wonderful back catalog of episodes that Mr. Taylor and Charles Hood have done for their official Mission Impossible podcast, and I have
that's
been
right.
binging them in the car as I drive back and forth to the vet these days. And again, I'm always amazed at all of the great behind the scenes stories you get. And again, folks, not just about the Mission Impossible movies, you hear about all sorts of great Hollywood films. So if you're looking for something to listen to in the car or anywhere, Light the Fuse comes highly recommended.
Yeah, and we will hopefully have news soon about when we will be back. So yes,
Cool.
another reason to keep the feed alive is that if you want to know the news, the breaking news, you'll get it. You'll get it there.
That's great news. Okay, now
Yeah,
we also have some shows here on the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network we'd like you to check out. In addition to the show you're listening to right now, Fine Tuning. We also have Disney Dish that I do with Len Testa. We also have the Epic Universal Podcast, which I do with Eric Hersey, who produces a lot of the shows here. I also do I Want That Too, which is our Disney merch show, which I do with Eric's bride, Lauren Hersey. I was just on Friday talking with Brian Gahn, and he and I will be recording a brand new Looking at Lucasfilm later this week, and that'll go up this coming weekend. Let's see, what else? I want to also mention we just posted a brand new episode, episode 11, of the Manufacturing the Magic, the history of themed entertainment that Noah and Shelley Vioda lead. We're hosting that series here on Jim Hill Media. And then, of course, there is Disney Unpacked, the video series that I do with Len and veteran Imagineer Jim Schul. And we just posted a show about the Storybook Land Canal Boat Ride. In fact, kind of tying back to Mickey Mouse. We talk about how once upon a time Walt wanted to end that Fantasyland attraction by revisiting a moment from the Mickey short from '38, Brave Little Tailor, and the idea was that your boat was going to float by a giant that was asleep under a flower bed that was made to look like a giant patchwork quilt. That almost happened, but
One of the best Mickey shorts ever, I think, by the way. Just in terms of iconic imagery,
oh
just
yeah.
one of the best. And also him cutting the bean into the very almost transparent slices.
Well, now what's interesting is this isn't. You're thinking of the Fun and Fancy Free thing,
Yes,
Willie the
yes.
Giant. This is actually the short that was done and I want to say that's 48. This was 38. And what's fascinating about this is these are the same animators who were working on Snow White that are doing the shorts, and it's a surprisingly well animated, really muscled animated feature. I mean, the A team at Disney is working on the shorts and the features at that time. But you're not wrong. In fact, that's the thing that always kind of kills me about when you watch those. What do they call them? The package features, where it's just.
Yeah.
It's not like a full story. It's like sometimes you get 8 little shorts grouped together, or you get 2 20-minute films put together, and you just get a sense of this is those lean post-war years where you have these guys who were capable of greatness, and it's like, we have $1.40. This is as much
Yeah.
movie as we can make. And so the very scene you were describing there, where Mickey is carving the bean, so everybody gets a little slice of food. It's beautiful animated, but again, it's in this film that's almost tragically underfunded.
Right. A little autobiographical there.
No,
Yeah.
no. That's an excellent observation. I had not thought of that. Wow. Okay. So, all right. Anyway, folks, today's show. I don't want to thank Eric Hersey and David Gray for producing the podcast. By the way, if you could do Drew and I a favor and head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review. Well, not just the show you're listening to right now, Fine Tuning, but also Light the Fuse. Like I said, Drew just said, it keeps the feed alive. Beyond that, social media wise, Drew, where can folks find you?
Drew Tailored, like a tailored shirt. Most actively on Instagram and Twitter. And what about you, Jim? Where can people find you?
Mostly at the vet these days. No, actually on X, Twitter, whatever they call it. Likewise, Instagram. I'm there as Jim Hill Media. And then on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And I think that's going to do it for this week. And again, great to have Drew back from the East Coast. So on behalf of Mr. Taylor, thank you for listening to this week's Fine Tuning. And we will be back soon.